Recording has started. So when we started the app, I said when you create a new React app, you're going to see node modules which contains installed folders. Anything you install comes to this node modules. You have another folder called public. This public folder contains the most important thing we are looking at is this index.html. So we have the index.html. This public folder serves the public. Whatever goes to the public happens here. And your project will have one index or like one HTML file. We call that SP, a single page application. In this case, you have this single file. Then we have this SRC. SRC stands for source. So whatever you send to the public is being fetched from this source. So the source of this index.html is this SRC. This is where most of our work is. You won't have to do anything here. You won't. This notebook is usually very heavy, so you won't have to do anything. This public, again, like I said, the most important thing we are considering here is the index.html file. Then we have the SRC. This one serves this public. Inside this SRC folder we have different files, but the first one we are considering is this index.js. Now in React, what you'll be doing is you'll be writing, most of the codes will be JavaScript codes, and it's going to be using something called JSX. JSX is JavaScript XML. So what we'll be doing is we'll be writing HTML codes even in JavaScript file. Well, how is that working? That is handled by
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can hear you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you now.
Okay. Sir. So I was explaining this, that this SRC folder serves the
Yes, sir.
it serves the public folder. Whatever we display in the public is being fetched from this SRC. So
Yes, sir.
inside this public folder, the point of entry is the index.js, is the point of entry. So what that is going to do is it comes to this index.js and fetch the contents, then sends it to the index.html in the public folder. So let's open the index.js. This is it. Now whatever you put here, let's say I have a D and I put I here. This I will be sent, since we are inside the index.js, this I will be sent to the index.html. Now in the React, instead of putting all the codes here, of course, imagine you have another thing. Let's say I have another div and this is hello. Instead of putting everything here, it's going to make this page look so rough. So
Yes, sir.
there's another file called app.js. So what you're going to do is you put your codes in the app.js, then you import it in the index.js. So you won't do much here. You won't do much. You only have little things to do here in this index.js. So this is the pathway. This app.js, we send information to index.js. The index.js, we send it to index.html.
Yes, sir.
So the primary work of the index.js is to display the app.js and some other little things that we consider along the line. Let's now go to the app.js. Since we said that the index.js itself will not be doing much, since we said it's going to be getting its content from the app.js. So let's go to the app.js and see what is there. So I will just ignore all of this for now. And let's comment out everything on this page. I shouldn't be able to select and comment. Fine. So next is you want to create a component. A component is just is a usable code. Components make it easy to use codes. So let's create a component. A component is a simple JavaScript function. You can have a class component or functional component, but we are considering functional components. For now, we are not looking at class-based components. So let's create a component together. Like I said, the component is just simple JavaScript function. So this is a function. Then I will say return this. So just okay, let me first remove this for now. So return. Now remember I said we'll be using something called JSX. JSX stands for JavaScript XML, and that allows you to write HTML in JavaScript. So let's bring in order to use JSX, you need to first import React. If you don't import it, you won't be able to use JSX. It's going to throw back an error. So, okay, let me take my time to explain what is happening here. This is a function, and this function, whatever it returns, will be seen as HTML codes. I come again. This function, we make it return HTML codes. Remember, the extension of this file is JS. So normally this function.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Normally this function is expected to contain JavaScript codes alone. So the way it works is that anything outside of this return is JavaScript, but anything within this return is seen as HTML. Anything outside this return is JavaScript, but anything within this return, anything we return here will be seen as HTML codes. So let's return something simple. You can say return a div. Remember we said we were using XML, so let's just say hello world. So next is, you've returned it, you want to display it on the screen. Remember I said that this page, we send its content to the index.js. So we want to import the content of this page in index.js. But for that to be possible, we need to first export it.
Yes, sir.
If you don't export it, you won't be able to import it. So we can say export default. So when you export it now, you can now import it on this page. So you can say import app from app. Now the difference is that this one is the URL. Do you notice that this React does not have dot slash, but this one has dot slash?
Yes, sir.
Whenever you import without this dot slash, whenever you import directly, it means you are importing from the node modules. This is what is going on. This is importing, whenever you're importing anything from the node modules, you won't need to put this dot slash. It automatically goes to the node modules and fetch it. But this dot slash, what it does, it goes to the root folder. This is the root folder, the source. It goes to this source, and it now starts looking for the file name you want. So when I say dot slash, it comes here and look for the file called app.js. It looks for this file. This we say dot slash app. Normally we have to write it like this, dot slash app dot js. Normally that is, we are ignore this for now. Ignore this for now. You are importing from app.js. This dot slash dot and forward slash is going to go to the root folder, this SRC folder, and it will import from this file called app.js. So what I mean is, this is the name of the file. Next is, what are you importing from that file? You can import, let's say, anything. You can import anything from that file. So let's see how this works. I'm importing anything from app.js. Now, when you are importing JavaScript code, you don't need to put the extension. If it's other files, you put the extension. But if it's JavaScript, you don't need to put the extension. So import anything from app.js. Now, should this work? Well, what happens is, because this is default, this is the default, you can nickname it. You can give this any name. But let's assume this default is not there. If this default is not there, if I just say export, if I just say export app like this, then I need to use, if I want to call on this, I need to call on this exact name called app. I can't use an alias. But if it is default, I can use an alias like this. Any questions, sir? Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Oh, it's on my hand. Hello, sir.
No question, sir.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm with you, sir.
Okay, let's move on. So,
Yeah, I'm with you, sir. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you now, sir. I can. So, if it is the default, you can import it with any name of your choice, like anything whatsoever. But if it is not the default, you need to import it with this exact name. Meaning that if this is Tolu, if it is the default, if I say export default Tolu, then if I want to import it, I can call it anything. It's not a must I use Tolu. But if it is not the default, I have to use that Tolu. Then if it is not the default, you need to put it in curly braces. Since it is not the default, you need to put it in curly braces. But if it is default, you don't need to put it in curly braces. Making two things. Default, you can call it anything and it doesn't stay in curly braces. But if it's not the default, it needs to be in curly braces and you need to use the exact name. So let's change it back to default. So I'll say export default app like this. So we are importing it here. You can call it anything like I said. Then you can now display it on the screen. Anything. So this will display the content of this page. This hello world will be displayed on the screen. Now the good news is I can display anything again. So it's going to display it twice. Remember I said components are actually reusable codes. Components are usable codes.
Yes.
So when I display the anything again, it's going to display that hello world again. But note that this one is independent of this. That is, whatever happens there is if it's not dependent on what happens there. They're actually independent. So let's change this back to app. So I can now display the app. Let's move forward. Next is this. You want to look at states. In React.js, states allows you to state whenever you have a, okay, let's have a variable now. When you have a variable like this, if anything changes this variable, the HTML part will not know. That is why we use states. You want a variable, sometimes you want a variable such that whenever that variable changes, you want to rerun this part, you want to load this part again. So in that case, you bring in states, and to use a state, you bring in something called useState. useState is a function. useState is a function that returns an array. The first value in that function, like is a parameterized function. Sorry, useState is a parameterized function that returns an array. Now this function, the first value in that array that function returns. Remember I said useState is a function that returns an array, a parameterized function. The first value in that array that the function will return will be whatever you write here. Why the second value in this array that will be returned will be another function. So we can now say, let's a comma b equals to this. So whenever you call on use states, the first value here, or whatever value you put here, becomes the value of a, and this b is a function. Can we proceed? Hello, sir. Are we together? Please, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I can hear you.
So this function returns an array. The first value will be whatever you write here, while the second value will be a function. So next is, whenever you call on this function, this since the second value is a function, whenever you call on that function, you put a value inside it. So meaning that whenever I call on b now, since b is a function, b also is expecting a parameter. So whatever value I put here becomes the new value of a. So if I call on b like this, it means that the value of a will now change to 6. Whenever I call on this b and I need to put a value, whatever value I put there becomes the new value of a. So let's add a button here. So we can now say, add a button. Whenever I click on this button, I want to change the value of a to 10. So I just need to call on b and put 10. So when I click on this, it will change the value of a to 10. Do you understand this part?
Yes, very well, sir.
Okay. Now, but there is a little problem in React. Whenever you want to call on a function, you don't do it like this. You don't put parentheses here like this. No, it won't even allow us to click on this button. So to call on parameterized function in React, you need to use your arrow function. So now, with arrow function now, if I click on this button, it will change the value of a to 10. Let's move on. Next, if you want to use, let's say I have an input. And I want the value of, let's get another variable called c. Let's see, and its function should be d. So I want the situation about the user types inside this input. I want the value of c to be whatever is inside this input. So I can say on keyhop, so remember what we want to do is we want to do something like this. Then put whatever is input, whatever is in the input here. Remember, whenever you call on d and you write it like this, it's going to, so whenever you call on d, since d is a function, whatever is inside this place becomes the value of c. Abi?
Yes, sir.
So, but then you can't call on a function like this, a parameterized function. You need to put your arrow function like this now. So how then do we get whatever the user types? Recall in JavaScript we use events. So you want to say event.target.value, something like that. So to use events in React, you first put the event here. You put it here, you can now pass it to this place. So this becomes event.target.value. So what this is going to do is it's going to get whatever is inside this input and set it as the value of c. Whatever is inside this input, you are getting it as event and you're passing it as event.target.value. Whatever you put here, let's say if I put Taye here, Taye automatically becomes the value of c. Abi?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So what I'm just doing is you're just saying let it now be event dot target dot value. Then next is we want to look at how to display an array. But then before displaying an array, I want to write a conditional statement by saying if the value of a is, let's say, greater than 10, display I am big. If the value of a is lesser than 10 or is lesser than or equal to 10, display I am small. 10 and above, okay, 10 and above, display I am big. Anything lesser than 10, display I am small. Let's do that. 10 and above, display I am big. Then anything lesser than 10, display I am small. Whenever you want to write JavaScript syntax in your HTML, you need to put these curly braces. So you can now say if a is greater than or equal to 10, you are using ternary operator now. Display, then you can now display text. I am big. Else, display. Let me close the div. I am small. So it's going to check this condition. If this condition is met, it will display this div. If it's not met, it will display this div. Do you understand that part?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next is, let's say we have an array. Let's sorry. Yeah. This states we have an array like this, and this array, let's say we have these values there. You want to display all the values in this array, so you want to run the loop to display all the values. In React, you can easily use your map. So just say arr.map. So each value there will be var. This can be anything. Then now do whatever you want to do. So I can say display var. So the reason we are putting this var in curly braces is because it's a variable. But let's assume it's just HTML. You don't need to put it in curly braces. So var represents each value in this array. So this is going to display 579. Can we move on?
Sorry, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'm very sorry. Can I please come again for that map? Sorry, please. I think it's one of the places I'm having issues.
Okay.
The map.
This is an array, right?
Yes, sir.
And we are saying that the value of ARR should be this array. Remember, whatever this returns becomes the value of ARR.
Yes, sir.
So we are now saying ARR.map. Let's do something. Let's first start with something very small and say hello. So map expects it can take up to 3 parameters. The first one is the value. The second one is the index, and the third one is the array itself. Abi?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you call on map, it's going to run the codes, anything inside this curly braces. It will run it based on the number of items in map, since in this array. Since we have 3 items in this array, it's going to display hello 3 times.
Yes, sir.
Now, but maybe I don't want to display hello. Instead, I want to display each of these values. So, and remember that each value in the array will be saved as var. Here I come here and I say display var. This will just display a text called var. It's not going to display this variable var.
Yeah, exactly, sir.
So in order to make it happen, you put it in curly braces so that it's going to see it as JavaScript codes.
Yes, sir.
So this will now display 579.
Yes, sir.
Next is whenever you are using map only returns a value, like a single thing. It doesn't return two things. I mean in React.js now. This does not return two things, it only returns one. Meaning that if I come here and I say put another div here, this will throw back an error because this map is now returning two things. This is the first and this is the second. So map can only return one thing, but that one thing can now have many other things within it. I can put other things here. I can put another div here if I want. This will work fine. I can return, but the thing is this, let me format it properly. This map is just returning one thing. That one thing can now have many other things within it. Next is map also expects something we call key. Whenever you are using map, that single item, remember map returns only one single item. That single item must have a key, and that key must be unique to each item there. Meaning that this key, I can use var now because what is it? Okay, I can use var as the key because in this array, no two items, like we don't have recurring values. Do you understand? Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Hello, please can you hear me? Are you still there?
Hello, I'm with you, sir. On record, my network is breaking actually, but I'm with you, sir.
Okay. When you are inside map expects a key, and that key expects a unique value. Now, I can easily use this var as the key because we are not repeating any value. Each of the values here is unique. So I can use the var. But in case I have another value, let's say 5 again. Now, we now have 5 twice. This is 5 and this is 5. You can't use the var as the key again because it means that two divs now we now have the same key. Do you understand? Okay, let me just continue explaining. I'll send the video. We can't have like whenever you're using map like this, it expects a key, but two items must not have the same key. It must be unique. So in this case, if this is like this, I can just say key is var. But immediately you have a repeating value, like immediately you are repeating any value. Let's say you have another 7 here, 7. Then you can't use the var as the key again because it means that two containers will now have the same key, which shouldn't be. So that is why whenever you have values like this, you can easily use the index as the key. So of course, two items will not have the same index in the same map. Inside two items don't have the same index. But like I always say,
Sorry, hello, sir.
yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm actually following you. I'm sorry for breaking the transmission.
No.
I'm actually following you. My network is actually breaking, but I'm following you, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir. So, like I always say, if you have ID, let's say each of these values are an object that has an ID, then I will advise that you use the ID as the key instead. But in case there is no ID, just use the index. Except you can use var if and only if you are sure that the values here will not repeat itself. That is, each value is unique. So we have that. Next is we want to talk about splitting things into different components. I think that was what we looked at yesterday. Splitting things into different components. Now, before we do that, let's say I want to change the value. Maybe whenever I click on anyone, I want to change the value of that one that I click on. I want to change it to 0. Whenever I click on anyone, I want to change the value of that one that I click on to 0. So I can now say add a button, then on click. The index can tell us the position of that particular one that we click on. So I can say change to 0. So you're going to create a function called change to 0. Click me. So when I click on this button, it's going to call on a function called change to 0. Let's create a function together. Now you want to know the one that the user clicked on. You don't just want to change everything to 0. So what I'm going to do is you will pass the index to this function. So you are passing this I. You are passing this I to this particular function. So you can now receive it here. So let's say index. Next is this. You can say let's new array equals to. So what you are doing is this. You are splitting. Don't in React. You don't do new array equals to array like this. No, you don't. You don't. Instead, you split it. It will seem as though you are going to have the same result, but then technically they are not the same. Maybe we create time to talk about what is happening there one day. Technically, they are not actually the same. You don't say new ARR equals to ARR. No, you spread it out like this. What I'm just saying is it's just the same as saying let new ARR equals to ARR. That is going to give you something like that. So that new ARR now will now be everything inside this ARR. But you don't say let new ARR equals to ARR. You don't do that in React. Like it's as though, but thinking about it, you would think it's going to give you the same thing, but not in all instances. So it's not good. Next is this. You can now say new ARR index of index equals to 0. So what you are doing is this. You are saying new ARR, you are changing the value at that particular index to 0. But if you are doing something like this, let me comment this part out. If you are doing something like this, let's new ARR equals to ARR, and you say new ARR index of index equals to 0. What is going to happen is at this particular point, it will try to change this itself. It will try to change this ARR. It will attempt to, which is something you don't do in React. If at all you need to change this value, you need to use this function. You don't utter it directly. You don't. So please don't do this. Particular line is forbidden. Don't. Whenever you are dealing with array or object, don't do this. Instead, spread it. Whenever you are dealing with array or object, spread it instead. Don't assign it like this, please. Okay, let's move on. So what you are doing is you are spreading it. You are changing the value of that to 0. Then you can now say set ARR. You can now call on the function, and let's say let the new value be this. So that's all. So this function now, we now set it back to this, and that solves the problem. Any question?
Following, sir, there's no question here.
So please, again, I'm repeating this. Please, whenever you want to assign array or object to a value. I mean, if that value is a state, if this is a state, I want to assign it to anything, please spread it out. Don't just say new AR equals to ARR. Then, I think this, okay, this is going to work. The next is state lifting. Whenever you are building your application and it gets so big, then you need to split it. In fact, right from beginning, you need to even start thinking about what will be inside each component. Let each component do one thing. Like don't jump out too many things in a single component. Try to split this into different components. So what we're going to do is, maybe I want this. Okay, maybe this I can take it to one component. This button changing it, I can take it to another component. This one displaying you are big and you are small, I want to take it to another component. So I'll create different components now. Let me just create a folder, a separate folder within my components. So that I'll call this folder testing, because we are just using it to test once we've done before now. Test. So within this test, I can now create file. I can say big or small .js. So what it's going to do is going to display that big or small, this line. Here's it. It's going to help us to display this line. So let's create a function. Import React, since you are using JSX. Yeah. So after importing React, we have this big or small. Then we can now say return okay. So come here, cut this out and bring it here. Now this, put it in. So this A is not available here. You need to bring it here also. So you come here and you bring the states from this place. So this states. It's fine. So the reason we can easily lift it is because, the reason we can bring it here is because there is no other place that we are using this A inside this place. Inside this, we are not using that any other place. But for a value like this, let's assume let's assume we are using this array inside this place. Then you can't just lift it like that. You can't, because you still need it. You still want to display it here. You still want to display it here. So you can't just take it like that. Whenever many components share the same codes, then you don't just take it to that component. No, instead you take it to their denominator, to their parent. And remember, the owner of the state, I'm trying to split up, the owner of the state must be the one to edit that state, to change the value of that state. I think that's what we looked at yesterday, Abi.
Yes, sir.
So the owner of the state must be the one to change the value of that state. So in that case, whenever you have, let me just quickly go to yesterday's class. During yesterday's class, we needed this. Okay, let me use something very simple. So instead of doing much, I'll just comment out all of this. Let's see. I have first. Let's create a component called first. I'll go to my test folder. I'll get a component called first. I'll call it first.js. Or better still, please give me some time. Let me put on the generator so that we have enough time to explain this.
Okay, sir. There's no problem, sir.
So we want to create two files. I'll create two files. I've created one first.js. Let's create another one called second.js. So these are two files. Then let's assume I have a variable here. Import then cost first. So let's create a variable together. Let's say a state. Let's var set var is this state, and let's say this variable is initial value is, let's say, 12, and I'm displaying something like this. My value, or my lucky number, let's say my lucky number is var. You know, this will display my lucky number is 12, Abby.
Yes, sir. We don't need to import the use state.
Sorry, I thought it would have automatically imported it. Oh, sorry. This will be capital letter R. Then this will be use. Oh, I thought later I use this state, so it would have automatically imported it. I don't know why it didn't import it. Okay.
Okay,
So
sir.
let's say export default first. So we are exporting this so that we can import it, let's say, in our app.js. So it has auto imported it first. Where is it? Okay. It has auto imported it first. Next is this. We want to go to second and use this same variable, this same where is it? We want to use the same var inside this place too.
Var.
So I'll just cut all of this. I'll just copy everything here, paste it here, change this to second. Then for now I'll remove this. I'll now say, so let's assume the text here is a bit different. I want to say, oh, I am var years old. But we are still referring to the same var.
Yes,
We are still
sir.
using the same value. So let's import this here also in our app.js. So this one will display my lucky number is this. Why this is 12? Why this one with this one is meant to display I am 12 years old. The problem is that we want to find a way of bringing this var here, meaning that the number will be used is needed by the two components. That 12 is needed by the two components. So what we are going to do is this. We now ask ourselves that what is the common denominator. In this case, app.js is the common denominator because both of them are in app.js. So this is the common denominator. For that reason, you need to lift this variable, these states, out of this place and take it to their common denominator, which is the app.js. So this is what we call state lifting. Since we are sharing, you want to use it here and you also want to use it here, Then you now look for their common denominator where both of them are present. Then you lift it to that common denominator. Do you understand it, sir?
Yes, sir. The other one, the other component is second. Do we need to also cut it out there?
No, we
I
just what we
think
want to do at the end of the
Allah.
day is this. The problem is not this verb in here. The problem is that states. The problem we actually
Okay.
have is the states being here. Not there's no state here.
Oh, okay, 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 okay.
So we now take the states to their common denominator. So we can now pass it to the two of them now. So to pass it down, you come here and give this any value. I can call it value, and I'll say the value of value is var. Same way, I can pass it here value, and the value of value is var. So I've passed it to this, and I've passed it to this. It's not a must I use the same name for both of them. I can use any name for both of them. I can call this any name. So, but then I've successfully passed. I can good. Let's even do it like this. Yeah, I can call it age, since in this case it's serving as age, while in this case it's serving as, let's say, lucky. You can call this variable lucky.
Yeah, thank God you even changed it. That value I was thinking is a keyword.
No. Okay. So we are passing it down. We can now go to this component to make use of it. Whatever you pass down, you can receive it with something called props. This props is not a keyword. You can replace with anything, but the convention is to use props. So anything you pass down will be assigned as a property of this props. This props is an object. So whatever you pass down will now be set as a property of this props, such that we can now say props dot what do we call it, dot lucky. So we can now
Lucky.
say that's lucky. Do you understand it, sir?
Yes, sir.
So same way also, in this case we call this age. So we can now also pass it and call it props. Then we now say props dot age. So instead of saying props, you can choose not to by destructuring age out of it. You can destructure age out of it from this place. So that okay. Sorry. You can destructure age out of it. So that you come here and just put age. Same way you can destructure lucky out of it. So that you just come here and put lucky. Any questions, sir?
No question, sir.
Next, I want to add a button here. Whenever I click on this button, I want to change the value of this lucky to 80. Whenever I click on this button, I just want to change the value of the lucky to 80. So you can say on click. But then the owner of a component, the owner of a state must be the one to edit that state. So this component does not own this value, so it can't be the one to change that value. Do you get it, sir?
Yes, sir.
So what this app.js will still be the one to change the value to anything it wants. So what you're going to do is this: when you click on this button, you want to do something. But since we know that this app.js will be the one to do the changing, let's write a function here called change lucky. Change lucky. Sorry, const change lucky. So what this is going to do is going to change the value of var now. That sets var. It will change it to 80. So whenever I call on this function will change the value of this to 80. Next is we now want to find a way of passing this function down to this sorry, down to this first.js, so that when I click on this button, it will call on that function. So you can also pass it down as props and call maybe change lucky equals to change lucky. You can call it another name if you want to.
Like you mean the first change lucky?
Yes, this one you can call it anything.
Okay.
So this anything now stands for this O function. You assign this O function to this. So on getting to this place, I can destructure it out. Remember we named it anything.
Yes, sir.
So when I click on this button, I can now call on anything. So when a user clicks on this button, it will call on anything, and anything will change the value of lucky to 80. Any question?
No question, sir.
No, but we are not yet done. We are not. Now, what if I don't want it to be changed to a static value? That is, I may choose to change the value to 30. I may choose to change the value to 50. Do you understand? I don't just want it to change it to 80. I want to change it to other things aside 80. So that maybe I can have a button. This first button will change it to 80. The next one will change it to 30. If I click on this to change it to 80, if I click on it to change it to 30. So that means this needs to be a parameterized function somehow, so that it's going to be dynamic. So we can say sent, we can call it sent value. So instead of this being 80, this will now be sent value. So whenever we call on this function, we need to pass a value to it. Then whatever we pass will now be the value of sent value. So what you can now do is this. Instead of calling it like this, we now say you put your arrow function. So this can pass 80 and this can pass 30. Any question?
No question, sir.
Okay, let's now assume you want to do some logic before calling on this anything. Let's say whenever I click on this button, I want to first subtract 5 for whatever value before sending it. Let's just assume that before calling on this function change lucky, I want to just for some reasons I want to do some logic before doing that. So what you're going to do is this. You can say some logic. So let's get a function called some logic. Const some logic. What I'm just trying to say is you won't call on this anything directly, maybe because you still want to do something, some processing before calling on anything. Maybe you just feel that value is not cool enough for what this is expecting, for what anything is expecting. You need to do some logic, just like we did in our last class where we did something like this. We first created an object before calling on that function. So maybe you want to do some logic before calling on that function. Then you can do something like this. So this function will now be the ones who call on anything. You can now pass your value here. So let's assume I want to subtract 5 from whatever value I send. So let's say here I'm sending 80. So I can now say I can call this value or anything. So I can now say value minus 5, something like this. So what I'm just doing is this: when the user clicks on this button, 80 will be sent as the value of this value. Then you are subtracting 5 from it and you are passing it to anything. Do you understand this, sir?
Yes, sir.
Or better still, you can create a variable if you want to. So you can now pass A. this space like this. So when the user clicks on this button, this will subtract it will pass as value, then this will subtract 5 from it and it will pass it to anything. So this some logic is the one calling on